The silence of deep space is not empty. It hums with the faint radiation of dying stars, the whisper of solar winds across light years, the electromagnetic song of nebulae born and collapsed before human memory began. Samus Aran knows this silence intimately. She has crossed it alone more times than most civilizations have recorded in their entire histories. Her gunship drifts through the void between mapped star systems, engines throttled to minimum burn, sensors extended like the whiskers of some great mechanical predator tasting the dark for prey. She is following something that should not exist. The signal is faint, encoded in a frequency so ancient that her ship's AI required 3 full cycles to even recognize it as intentional communication. Chozo. Not the warnings she has encountered before, not the monuments or temples scattered across forgotten moons. This is a distress beacon, pulsing weakly from a region of space her navigation charts label only as stellar void. No colonies. No planets. No charted anomalies. Just emptiness. And yet the signal insists otherwise. Samus adjusts her trajectory with a single finger against the control interface. Her power suit remains inactive, stored in her ship's armory chamber, but her instincts are already armored. Something is wrong. The signal's cadence is irregular, stuttering like a voice drowning in static. Worse, her scanners are detecting interference patterns she has never encountered before. Energy readings that fluctuate impossibly, gravitational distortions that twist space without corresponding mass, and beneath it all, a psychic hum that makes her temples ache. She has fought psychic organisms before. Metroids. Ex-parasites. The Ying of dark ether. But this is different. This presence does not feel biological. It feels sentient in the way storms feel sentient, conscious in the way entropy might dream if it could think. Her Chozo DNA, the genetic inheritance that grants her reflexes beyond human limitation and resilience beyond mortal flesh, recoils instinctively from the sensation. The distortion intensifies. Her ship shudders as gravitational waves ripple across the bow, and suddenly her instruments scream warnings in overlapping cascades. Space itself is terrible. Not a wormhole. Not a dimensional rift like the portals to dark ether. This is something organic, something that writhes and hungers.
Her view screen flickers, and for a fraction of a second she sees it.
A spiraling vortex of colors that should not exist, hues that burn her retinas even through digital display filters. A tunnel lined with something that resembles flesh and starlight and screaming faces all at once. Her hands move with practiced speed across the controls, firing maneuvering thrusters, reversing engine burn, deploying emergency stabilizers.
None of it matters.
The void has teeth, and it is pulling her inward. Her ship groans as the hull compresses under impossible pressure. Alarms wail. The AI's calm voice reports cascade failures across every system simultaneously. And still the vortex widens, a wound in reality itself, and Samus Aran, hunter of worlds, destroyer of ancient evils, the most dangerous warrior in her galaxy, can do nothing but hold her course steady as the universe swallows her whole. The transition is not instantaneous. She falls through layers of wrong space, through colors that have no names, through temperatures that exist only in theoretical physics. Time stretches and compresses. She sees her ship's hull age 1,000 years in a heartbeat, then revert to factory-new metal in the next instant. She tastes copper and ozone and something sweet like decay. And then, with a violence that rattles her bones even through the pilot's chair crash foam, her ship impacts something solid. When the emergency lights flicker back online, Samus is already moving. Her power suit materializes around her body in cascading plates of Chozo alloy, orange and crimson armor locking into place with pneumatic precision. Her visor activates, HUD elements blooming across her vision. Shield integrity at 60%, atmosphere composition unknown, gravitational constant fluctuating, external environment classified as hostile. She magnetizes her boots to the deck and makes her way to the airlock.
Outside, the impossible awaits.
She stands on the hull of her ruined gunship, and through her visor she sees an ocean of madness. There is no ground,
No sky.
no stars, only an infinite expanse of churning color and form, where massive shapes drift like psychedelic leviathans through currents of something that is not quite space and not quite matter.
Some of these shapes have eyes. Some have mouths.
All of them are turning toward her ship, drawn by the bright, clear beacon of her uncorrupted soul.
Samus Aran scans the environment with calm, methodical precision.
Her visor catalogs impossibilities as though they were simply new data points.
Energy readings a measure. Atmospheric pressure. Variable.
Threat assessment. Absolute.
She does not panic.
She does not despair. She has walked through the vacuum of space, survived the crushing depths of ocean planets, endured the radiation storms of dying suns.
This place, whatever it is, will not be the thing that stops her.
But deep in her Chozo-enhanced mind, beneath layers of training and genetic augmentation, a primal certainty crystallizes.
She is not in her universe anymore. She is somewhere else.
Somewhere older.
Somewhere that looks at her with 10,000 invisible eyes and recognizes her as prey. The first demon detaches from the writhing mass and begins its approach. Samus raises her arm cannon and targets it with perfect professional stillness.
Whatever this place is, she will survive. She always does.
The creature that approaches defies her visor's classification protocols. Her suit's scan database contains biological profiles for thousands of xenomorphs across dozens of star systems, but the entity drifting toward her ship resolves into her display as nothing more than cascading error codes. It is shaped vaguely like something with wings, but the wings are made of screaming faces. It has claws, but they are forged from crystallized regret. Its body shifts between solid matter and gaseous nightmare with each pulse of non-existent heartbeat.
Samus fires.
The charge beam lances through the void at a bolt of concentrated plasma, striking the demon's center mass. The entity shrieks, a sound that bypasses her audio receptors entirely and resonates directly inside her skull. Warped flesh burns and boils away, revealing something underneath that might be bone or might be congealed hatred given form. The demon recoils, twisting in agony across dimensions her visor cannot properly render.
But it does not die.
It cannot die. Within seconds, the burned tissue regenerates, flowing back together like liquid poured in reverse, and the demon resumes its advance with renewed hunger. Samus registers this data with emotionless efficiency and adjusts her tactical approach. If concentrated fire proves insufficient, she will employ volume and mobility instead. She launches herself from her ship's hull with a burst from her jump boots, rotating mid-air as weightlessness takes her, and unleashes a spread of missiles from her shoulder-mounted launcher. 5 warheads streak across the psychedelic void, each tracking the demon's erratic movement pattern with sophisticated targeting AI. They detonate in sequence, orange fireballs blossoming impossibly in an environment that should have no oxygen to sustain combustion. The demon screams again, its form fragmenting into dozens of smaller horrors that writhe and reform and multiply.
More shapes are detaching from the distant masses now. They sense the conflict.
They smell her soul, bright and clean, and utterly alien to this place of corruption. Samus catalogs at least 15 distinct entities closing on her position, each warping space around itself in unique and disturbing ways. Her suit's energy reserves tick downward with each weapon discharge. Her shield generators strain against the ambient psychic pressure that presses against her armor like deep ocean currents. She shifts into morph ball form. The transformation is instantaneous, her body compressing into a sphere of armored death, barely a meter in diameter. She drops back toward her ship's hull, bounces once with perfect calculation, and deploys a chain of bombs in her wake. The explosives detonate in a precise sequence, each blast propelling her forward with controlled acceleration while, simultaneously creating a barrier of fire and shrapnel between herself and the pursuing demons. The entities that fly through the explosion emerge scorched and howling, but they emerge nonetheless.
Samus catalogs this limitation with professional detachment. Her weapons are effective but not decisive.
The environment is hostile to standard physics, but not entirely divorced from them. The entities are vulnerable to energy and kinetic force but possess regenerative capabilities that exceed any biological organism in her database.
She needs more data. She needs to understand the rules of this place.
A demon shaped like a serpent of purple flame coils around her ship's engines, its eyeless face turning toward her with predatory focus. Samus aims carefully and fires a super missile, the enhanced warhead streaking through the void with a contrail of golden energy. The explosion tears the demon in half, both pieces thrashing independently before dissolving into sparks of impossible color.
That one does not regenerate.
She notes the distinction. Sufficient overwhelming force can achieve permanent banishment. But her ammunition is limited, and the entities are not. They swarm now, a dozen nightmares closing from all vectors, moving with coordination that suggests either hive intelligence or telepathic communication. Samus activates her speed booster, and even in the weightless environment of this hellscape, the Chozo technology responds. Energy crackles around her armor as she accelerates to impossible velocity, transforming herself into a living missile that carves through the demon swarm like a bullet through fog. Warp flesh disintegrates against her shield's kinetic barrier. The demons scream, their forms disrupted by the sheer physical force of her passage. She emerges on the far side of the swarm, rotates with thruster bursts, and charges again, each pass thinning their numbers, each impact buying her seconds of operational space. But the warp is infinite, and its horrors are numberless. For every demon she destroys or disrupts, two more emerge from the churning mass of unreality that surrounds her. They learn from each engagement, adapting their approach, some attempting to flank while others distract, still others hanging back as though studying her tactics. And beneath their assault, she feels something else, a deeper presence, vast and alien and impossibly ancient, turning its attention toward this strange, bright spark that dares to exist uncorrupted in its domain.
Samus Aran does not feel fear.
The Chozo conditioning that shaped her since childhood, the genetic modifications woven into her DNA, the countless battles against impossible odds, all of it has burned fear from her psychological architecture. But she recognizes danger with perfect clarity, and she understands that she is facing something fundamentally different from every enemy she has ever encountered.
These creatures are not biological. They are not technological.
They are not bound by the laws that govern matter and energy in her universe. They are nightmare-given form, emotion made flesh, thought crystallized into murderous reality. And yet, impossibly, they cannot touch the core of what she is. Her Chozo heritage, that luminous clarity of purpose and warrior's discipline encoded into her very cells, forms a barrier they cannot penetrate. They swarm around her, claw at her shields, scream their hatred and hunger, but they cannot infect her, cannot corrupt her, cannot reduce her to the broken, mad thing they need her to become. This realization shifts something in the tactical equation.
She is not prey here. She is something else, an anomaly, a foreign object that this realm cannot digest.
The demons are drawn to her brightness like moths to flame, but the flame burns them in ways they do not expect.
Samus plants a power bomb.
The device drops from her morph ball form and hovers for precisely 3 seconds before detonation.
She is already accelerating away when the explosion tears reality itself, a sphere of annihilating energy expanding outward with the force of a collapsing star compressed into a 10-meter radius.
Every demon caught in the blast simply ceases to exist, not destroyed, but erased, unmade at a fundamental level. In the silence that follows, Samus scans the environment again.
Her ship is damaged but intact.
Her ammunition reserves are at 40%.
Her energy levels are sustainable.
The swarm has retreated, not fled but withdrawn, as though the denizens of this place have collectively decided she requires a different approach.
She uses the reprieve to examine her ship's navigation systems, searching for any indication of where she is, how she arrived, and most importantly, how she might leave. The console displays are corrupted, filled with symbols and readings that make no sense, as though the ship's computer is trying to describe concepts it has no language for. But one reading is clear: a faint gravitational anchor, a distant point of stable space that might represent an exit. It is impossibly far, but distance is merely another obstacle, and Samus Aran has never allowed obstacles to remain obstacles for long. She begins emergency repairs with methodical efficiency, welding hull breaches with her plasma beam, rerouting power systems, preparing her ship for one final jump toward whatever salvation or damnation the distant anchor represents. The warp watches. The warp hungers. But the hunter does not break. The alarms wake Castellan Voran from his 4th hour of sleep in as many days, and his first coherent thought is that the Cadian Gate has finally fallen. He is stumbling into his uniform before the second alarm cycle sounds, muscle memory overriding exhaustion. And by the time he reaches the command deck, his eyes are clear and his hand is steady on his sidearm. "Report," he barks, and the junior officer at the Auspex station nearly drops his data slate in haste to respond. "Astronomical event. Sir, something just translated from warp space approximately 40,000 kilometers from the outer defense perimeter. Emergence pattern is unusual." Voran moves to the primary display and studies the tactical overlay. A single contact, small, irregular trajectory, no detectable warp signature but massive energy discharge during transition. For a moment he allows himself to hope it is merely debris, some Xenos wreckage spat out from the Imperium's turbulent currents. Then the contact adjusts its course, thrusters firing in controlled bursts, and his hope dies. "Weapons hot," he orders.
"Launch interceptors, and someone wake the Inquisition." The object that limps toward Imperial space is unlike anything in the fleet's recognition database. It is too small to be a warship, too advanced to be salvage, too intact to be wreckage. The hull is smooth, organic, shaped with curves that suggest function over aesthetic, but achieve both regardless. No Gothic spires, no cathedral architecture, no devotional iconography. Just sleek gunmetal gray and amber running lights that pulse with steady, peaceful rhythm. The interceptors close to engagement range and demand identification in Cadian battle can't.
The object does not respond.
They repeat the challenge in Gothic, then Low Gothic, then in binary machine code.
Still nothing.
The wing commander is 3 seconds from ordering weapons free when the alien craft's trajectory shifts again, angling away from the defensive perimeter, engines dying to minimal burn.
It is surrendering.
Or perhaps it is simply dying. The decision to recover the craft rather than destroy it comes from someone far above Voran's authority, someone whose name he will never learn but whose seal carries the weight of entire worlds. A Tech Priest salvage team is deployed with full Skitarii escort, and they bring the object aboard the primary defense station with magnetic grapples and whispered prayers to the machine god.
In the sterile white light of the examination bay, the craft looks even more impossible.
Tech Priest Mago Zero circles it with 13 augmetic eyes extended on mechanical stalks, scanning every surface, muttering binaric cant that his human attendants cannot comprehend. His conclusion, delivered with the flat certainty of one who trusts data above faith, sends tremors through the command structure.
"This is not human technology. This is not Xenos technology of any cataloged species."
The material composition includes elements that should not exist in stable form. The energy generation system operates on principles that violate 17 fundamental laws of thermodynamics. And yet it functions perfectly, efficiently, without prayer, without ritual, without the blessings that sustain even our most sacred machines. Voran, watching through the observation port, feels something cold settle in his gut. Heresy comes in many forms, but the most dangerous kind is the heresy that works better than dogma. They find the pilot when Zarel's team begins cutting through the airlock seal. The door hisses open despite having no apparent power supply, and inside, secured in a pilot's cradle that adjusts itself to accommodate human anatomy despite clearly being designed for something else, is a figure in orange and red armor.
She is humanoid.
Female, the medical augurs confirm, though the armor conceals her entirely. Not a single centimeter of flesh is visible. The suit itself is a marvel that makes the tech priests weep actual human tears from their few remaining organic eyes. A seamless construction. No visible joints, yet full articulation. Energy shielding that still flickers weakly despite the ship's systems being entirely dead. And an arm-mounted weapon that could be a cannon, a tool, or something their cogitator arrays simply cannot categorize.
She is unconscious but alive.
Her vital signs, read through the armor's mysterious emanations, show a heartbeat, respiration, neural activity.
Human? Perhaps.
But when Ziril attempts to interface with the armor's systems, the suit delivers an electrical shock that fries 3 of his mechadendrites and sends him staggering backward with smoke rising from his robes. The armor will not open.
Will not respond.
Will not yield. They bring her to a reinforced holding cell designed to contain captured Chaos champions. They post guards 30 Cadian shock troopers with lasguns trained on the cell's only entrance. They summon tech priests, medici officers, and specialists whose job descriptions are redacted from all official records. And then, 6 hours after her arrival, Samus Aran opens her eyes. The awakening is not dramatic. One moment she is unconscious, the next she is sitting upright with her visor scanning the room in methodical sweeps. The guards tense. The observers lean closer to their picked feeds.
Someone whispers a prayer to the Emperor. Samus stands.
The movement is fluid, controlled, showing no sign of injury despite her ship's catastrophic transition from impossible hellscape to material reality. She examines her cell with professional assessment-reinforced walls, single entrance, armed guards visible through the observation port.
A prison.
She has escaped worse. But she does not attempt escape. Instead, she raises both hands, palms outward, in a gesture of non-aggression as universal as human language can achieve. Then she waits. The Imperials do not know what to make of this. Xenos are supposed to be savage, chittering, alien in thought as well as form.
Tech heresy is supposed to be corrupted, insane, screaming with demon voices.
But this figure stands with military bearing, calm and patient, clearly intelligent, clearly waiting for communication. When they finally establish a rudimentary dialogue through pictographic displays mathematical concepts, basic physics, yes-no questions, the truth they uncover is more disturbing than any nightmare.
She is human. Or was.
Or is something human became when touched by technology so advanced it appears divine.
She comes from impossibly far away.
She was dragged through what she describes only as hostile space, using symbols that make the monitors flicker and the tech priest's augmetic spark. And when the psychers finally arrive, nervous sanctioned witches surrounded by null-field generators and armed guards, they extend their senses toward her and recoil as though burned. Her soul, the eldest psyker whispers, eyes wide with terror behind his hood. It is bright, pure, untouched. Not by the Emperor's light, but by something else, something older.
Something clean. She has been through the warp.
We can see its residue on her armor, taste it in the air around her. She has been inside the Imperium's depths and emerged uncorrupted, unchanged, unscarred. The psyker's hands tremble as he backs away from the observation port.
That should be impossible. That is impossible. And yet,
he cannot finish the sentence, cannot articulate the fear that grips his warp-touched mind. Because if one soul can pass through hell and emerge clean, then what does that say about those who emerge corrupted? What does it say about the necessity of suffering, of sacrifice, of the eternal war that consumes trillions?
What does it say about the Imperium itself?
Castellan Voren, watching Samus Aran stand motionless in her cell, feels the cold in his gut deepen into ice. They have not captured a Xenos infiltrator or a Hirtech abomination.
They have captured a question.
And in the Imperium of man, questions are more dangerous than any demon. Inquisitor Helweg arrives aboard the defense station with an escort of 24 stormtroopers, 3 gun servitors, and a personal astropath whose eyes have been sewn shut and whose mouth whispers constant prayers in languages that died before Terra's oceans cooled. She is a woman of severe beauty-sharp cheekbones, gray eyes like winter storms, augmetic replacements for her left arm and both legs hidden beneath crimson inquisitorial robes. Her reputation precedes her. 17 worlds purged, 43 heretical cults eradicated, 12 demon princes banished.
She does not suffer mysteries to exist in her presence.
Samus watches through her visor as the Inquisitor enters the observation deck, as the soldiers take defensive positions, as the woman herself approaches the reinforced glass, separating them with slow, measured steps. For a long moment they simply regard each other, hunter and hunter, warrior and warrior. 2 women forged in different crucibles but recognizing in each other the same fundamental nature.
Helweg speaks first.
Her voice is calm, controlled, shaped by decades of extracting truth from unwilling subjects. I am Inquisitor Katrin Helweg of the Ordo Xenos, and you are under the authority of the God-Emperor's Holy Inquisition. You will identify yourself, you will explain your origin, you will detail the nature of your technology and the circumstances of your arrival. Cooperation will be noted favorably, resistance will be overcome, deception will be punished. These are facts.
Not threats. Do you understand?
Samus responds through the pictographic interface they have established, her armored fingers moving across the data slate with surprising delicacy. Words form on the display. Samus Aran, hunter, lost, no threat to humans. Helweg's expression does not change, but something flickers behind those gray eyes, not belief, but curiosity. You claim humanity, yet wear armor that registers as Xenos-grade biotechnology. You claim peaceful intent,
yet carry weaponry that could level a Hive City block.
You claim to be lost, yet translated from warp space with a precision that suggests navigation, not accident. Explain these contradictions.
The pictographic conversation continues for 2 hours. Samus explains as best the limited medium allows the concept of the Chozo, an ancient avian race that adopted her as a child,
modified her genetics, trained her as their champion. She describes the Galactic Federation, a peaceful coalition of species that has never heard of this Imperium or its emperor. She recounts her pursuit of a distress signal and the catastrophic spatial anomaly that dragged her into what she now understands was something called the warp. With each answer, Helweg's frown deepens. She consults with Magos Zyril, who has been permitted to observe the interrogation, and the tech priest's assessment is delivered in clipped binaric that his human translator renders into Gothic.
Her technology violates the sacred patterns.
It functions without machine spirits, without prayer, without the rituals ordained by the Omnissiah. Yet it is not abominable intelligence. My deepest scans detect no demon taint, no warp corruption,
no chaos signatures. It is merely better,
more efficient, more elegant. It works as technology should work, but does not, according to every principle we hold sacred. Helweg's jaw tightens. She has faced demon princes and Xenos warlords with less trepidation than she feels facing this simple, calm warrior who refuses to kneel. Because the warrior represents something more dangerous than chaos or alien threat. She represents an alternative. You will demonstrate your armor's capabilities, Helweg declares.
It is not a request.
Samus complies with methodical efficiency. She activates her visor's various scan modes: thermal, X-ray, electromagnetic, biological analysis, and the displays show feeds that make the tech priests gasp. She demonstrates her morph ball transformation, compressing into a sphere that should contain a crushed corpse but instead shows her alive, aware, fully functional. She fires her arm cannon at reduced power into a provided target, and the blast leaves a crater of fused metal that glows white-hot for 15 minutes afterward. Every demonstration raises more questions than it answers. How does her armor store enough energy to power systems that should require a plasma reactor? How does she survive the Heifer says of her own mobility? How can her biological scans penetrate layered armor and ferrocrete walls to display the vital signs of observers 3 rooms away? The Mechanicus contingent grows increasingly agitated. Some tech priests whisper that her technology must be saved, studied, reverse-engineered. Others insist it must be destroyed before its existence contaminates the purity of STC doctrine. One priest falls to his knees and begins praying in machine code, begging the Omnissiah for guidance in the face of this theological impossibility. But it is when the discussion turns to faith that the true crisis emerges.
Do you worship the God-Emperor of mankind?
Helweg asks, and the question carries the weight of worlds.
Samus's response is immediate. No.
The room goes silent.
Soldiers exchange glances.
The astropath's whispered prayers stutter and halt. Helweg's face remains carefully neutral, but her augmetic hand flexes inside her robe, centimeters from her plasma pistol.
Do you worship any god?
Helweg continues, voice dropping to a dangerous softness. No. Do you acknowledge the supremacy of the human species over Xenos filth?
Samus hesitates. The pictographic interface struggles to convey nuance.
Finally she types, worked with many species. Peaceful cooperation possible. All sapient life deserves protection. The astropath screams. It is a thin, wailing sound like wind through a corpse's throat, and he collapses to the deck plates, while the sewn flesh over his eyes begins to seep blood. Helweg signals for Medici, but her attention never leaves Samus. You are either the most sophisticated Xenos infiltrator ever encountered, Helweg says slowly,
or you are what you claim, a human from a place so fundamentally different from the Imperium that you cannot comprehend the heresies you speak. I have not yet determined which possibility is more dangerous. She leans closer to the observation glass, and her reflection merges with Samus's armored form in the transparent surface. In the Imperium, cooperation with Xenos is heresy. Technology that functions without the Omnissiah's blessing is heresy. Refusal to worship the Emperor is heresy. You have committed 3 capital offenses simply by existing, and yet the Psychers say your soul is clean. You passed through the warp and emerged uncorrupted. You saved lives when the demons attacked this station during your capture, yes. We have those reports.
Soldiers who would have died if you had not pulled them from rubble, sealed breaches with that arm weapon of yours, provided covering fire against entities that should have torn you apart. Helweg's voice drops to a whisper that the audio recorders barely catch. You are a problem, Samus Aran, and the Inquisition's solution to problems is fire. Samus meets the Inquisitor's gaze through her visor, and though no words pass between them, both women understand. There will be no peaceful resolution. The Imperium cannot accept what Samus represents, cannot allow her to exist, cannot risk the questions she raises spreading through a population bred for unthinking obedience. Helweg turns and strides from the observation deck, her robes billowing behind her like crimson wings.
Prepare termination protocols, she orders.
If she resists, destroy the cell and everything in a 20-meter radius. The God-Emperor forgives necessity. Behind the reinforced glass, Samus Aran begins calculating escape vectors. The warp rift opens in the station's northern docking array at 0347 station time, catching the third watch rotation unprepared and exhausted. One moment there is only the usual hum of machinery and the distant rumble of generators the next. Reality splits like rotted fabric, and hell pours through the gap. Demons come first, lesser entities of tooth and claw and psychic hunger, materializing in squads of chattering nightmares that fall upon the dock workers and security personnel with gleeful savagery. Lost fire fills the air within seconds, crimson beams cutting through warp flesh only for the entities to reform and charge again, unstoppable and shrieking. Behind the demon vanguard come the true horror-strader marines in armor corroded by millennia of worship to dark gods, leading cultists whose bodies have been reshaped into living weapons, whose eyes burn with madness, and whose mouths scream devotions in languages that cause the station's Vox system to short out in sympathetic agony.
The incursion alarm wails through every corridor. Emergency blast doors slam shut, sealing entire sections.
Castellan Voran, still on duty after 18 consecutive hours because sleep is a luxury war does not permit, watches the tactical display with grim recognition. This is not a random raid. The attackers are moving with purpose, bypassing strategic targets, ignoring ammunition depots and command centers.
They are hunting something specific. They are hunting her.
In her reinforced cell, Samus Aran hears the explosions and recognizes the sound of war. Her visor tracks the distant energy signature's warp-taint readings identical to what she encountered in that impossible realm, growing stronger by the second. The guards stationed outside her cell receive frantic Vox transmissions and abandon their posts, rushing toward the sounds of battle. She could escape now. The cell's locking mechanism is sophisticated by local standards but primitive compared to Federation technology.
She could be free in 90 seconds. But the civilians.
She has seen them through her scans, dock workers and maintenance crews, families in habitation sections, children sleeping in quarters 3 decks below her position. If she escapes and these entities are hunting her, she leads them directly to the innocent.
Samus Aran has never considered herself a hero.
She is a bounty hunter, a professional, someone who accepts contracts and completes objectives. But the Chozo did not raise her to abandon those who cannot protect themselves, and her genetic code, that luminous clarity that let her survive the warp uncorrupted, will not permit flight when standing is an option.
She activates her arm cannon.
The cell wall, reinforced ferrocrete layered with defensive shielding, disintegrates under a sustained plasma beam barrage. The blast cuts through 3 meters of fortification in 8 seconds, leaving a glowing aperture large enough for her to step through. Alarms shriek in protest. Automated defenses target her and fire, but her shields absorb the turret fire with minimal energy loss, and her return fire is precise enough to disable the weapons without destroying them entirely. She moves through the station's corridors like a ghost in armor, her visor mapping the layout in real time, her audio sensors tracking the sounds of combat. The battle is concentrated near the northern docking array, but secondary contacts are spreading demon entities flowing through ventilation shafts and maintenance crawlways, flanking maneuvers that will encircle the defending forces if left unchecked. Samus intercepts the first demon pack 3 corridors from her cell. They are horrific things, vaguely humanoid but stretched and twisted, their flesh the color of infected wounds, their mouths filled with concentric rings of teeth. They see her and shriek with joy, recognizing the bright soul that escaped them once before. Her charge beam fires, and the lead demon's torso evaporates. The ones behind it scatter, moving with inhuman speed, trying to flank. Samus shifts into morph ball form, rolls beneath their slashing claws, and deploys a bomb chain that detonates upward. The blast tears through warp flesh with satisfying efficiency. One demon survives, lunging for her with talons extended. She emerges from morph ball directly into its path, her armored fist driving through its skull with enough force to crush steel. The entity dissolves into ash and disappointed screaming. She continues toward the battle, leaving dead nightmares in her wake. The Cadian defenders are dying when she arrives. A squad of shock troopers has barricaded themselves behind overturned cargo containers, pouring lost fire into a tide of demons that simply will not stop. Their sergeant is down, his body torn open by claws that reached through his flak armor like it was paper. The survivors are firing their weapons dry, knowing they have perhaps 60 seconds before the line breaks and the demons feast on their souls. Then the orange and red figure appears behind the demon horde, and the corridor erupts in fire.
Samus's missiles streak over the defenders' heads and detonate among the packed demon ranks with devastating precision.
Each warhead is a sun-bright explosion that tears warp flesh apart and sends entities shrieking back into the Imperium. Her plasma beam follows, sweeping through the survivors in a sustained barrage that leaves glowing scars in the deck plating.
The Cadians stare in shock. Their prisoner, the Xenos heretic who was scheduled for termination, just saved their lives. "Fall back to secondary positions," Samus says through her suit's external speakers, the words emerging in Gothic rendered phonetically by her visor's translation algorithms. The pronunciation is wrong, the grammar fractured, but the meaning is clear. The sergeant to corporal now, field promoted by death, nods numbly and gestures for his troops to withdraw.
Samus does not follow.
She advances into the breach. The northern docking array is a vision of hell. Warp fire burns in colors that hurt to perceive. Cultists in tattered robes chant praises to gods whose names cause hemorrhaging if spoken aloud. And in the center of the carnage, standing atop a pile of corpses that were once dock workers and station personnel, is a Chaos Lord. He is massive, his Terminator armor fused with demonic flesh, his weapons crackling with warp lightning. He turns toward Samus, and when he speaks, his voice is a choir of tortured souls screaming in harmony. The bright one, the clean one, the prize our masters hunger for, you will be broken. Little mortal, you will be reshaped into something beautiful and screaming. Your clarity will become our weapon, your soul our trophy. Samus scans him. Threat level extreme, armor integrity exceeding standard measurements, energy readings off scale.
She has fought stronger. She fires.
The screw attack activates, her armor wreathing in energy as she launches herself forward in a spinning assault that transforms her into a living drill of destruction. She hits the Chaos Lord at full acceleration, her shields meeting his, and the collision creates a shockwave that shatters windows 3 decks away.
The Lord staggers. Impossible.
Nothing human should possess the strength to move him. He swings his demon blade, and Samus dodges with acrobatic precision, the blade's edge missing her by centimeters and carving through the ferrocrete deck like it was mist. Her charge beam fires point-blank into his helmet. The impact cradles his head backward, and for the first time in centuries, the Chaos Lord feels something almost like pain. "What are you?" he roars, confusion bleeding through the demonic arrogance.
Samus does not answer.
She does not explain. She simply fights with methodical, professional, overwhelming efficiency.
Missiles, bombs, plasma.
Every tool in her arsenal deployed with perfect timing and zero hesitation. The demons close from all sides, trying to support their champion. She cuts through them without slowing, her speed booster charge carving lines of destruction through the horde. The Chaos Lord attempts a psychic assault, pouring warp energy directly at her mind, trying to shatter her sanity with visions of past traumas and future torments. The attack breaks against her like water against stone. Her Chozo-modified mind, that bright clarity forged in genetic transcendence and warrior discipline, simply does not have the vulnerabilities the warp expects. She feels the pressure, registers the hostile intent, catalogs it as another form of attack, and continues her assault without pause. The Chaos Lord realizes, too late, that he is losing.
Samus plants a powerbomb and retreats.
The Lord sees the device, recognizes its nature in the microsecond before detonation, and attempts to teleport. The warp does not answer fast enough. The explosion unmakes everything in a 15-meter sphere. Demons, cultists, the Chaos Lord himself all simply cease to exist,
erased down to the molecular level.
When the light fades, Samus stands alone in a crater of glowing metal, surrounded by the ashes of nightmares. Behind her, the surviving Cadian defenders emerge from cover. They see her standing in the center of devastation, her armor scorched but intact, her posture calm and alert. "Holy Throne," someone whispers. Samus reloads her missile launcher and moves deeper into the station. More demons remain.
More civilians need protection.
The battle is not over. But somewhere in the command center, watching through picked feeds, Inquisitor Hellweg sits motionless, her gray eyes reflecting the glow of burning demons. She has just witnessed something impossible. And impossibility, in the grim darkness of the 41st Millennium, is the most dangerous thing of all. The Ultramarines arrive 6 hours after the incursion begins, their strike cruiser translating from warp space with precision that speaks to millennia of naval tradition. They deploy via Thunderhawk, 3 gunships carrying full tactical squads, plus a Terminator veteran team. All under the command of Captain Theron, a warrior who has fought for 200 years and believed he had seen every variation of horror the galaxy could produce. The sight that greets them in the northern docking array proves that belief wrong. Bodies everywhere. Demon ash mixed with human corpses, the dead piled so thick that the Astartes' boots crunch on bone and armor fragments with each step. The warp taint is thick here, clinging to surfaces like psychic oil, and the squad's librarian brother Corvus, young for his rank but already bearing a dozen purity seals, hisses in discomfort as he filters the ambient corruption through his psychic wards.
"Captain,"
Corvus says,
"there was a significant warp breach here. Multiple greater demon signatures, plus at least 50 lesser entities.
But the breach has been sealed, not by Imperial ritual or Grey Knight intervention sealed from this side, by force."
As though someone simply pushed the warp back through its own wound and cauterized reality afterward. Theron frowns behind his helmet. Where are the defenders? They find the Cadians 6 corridors deeper, barricaded in what was once a cargo storage bay. 27 soldiers remain alive from a garrison of 200. They are exhausted, traumatized, several wounded badly enough that they should be dead but continue functioning through nothing but adrenaline and stubborn refusal to acknowledge mortality. Their weapons are empty. Their armor is torn. They stare at the Ultramarines with eyes that have seen too much. "The Xenos," the corporal says, when Theron demands a report. "The prisoner," she broke out when the demons came. We thought she would flee or join them. But she fought. Emperor's mercy. She fought like nothing I've ever seen. Killed a Chaos Lord. Sealed 3 separate warp rifts by throwing some kind of explosive device directly into them. Saved civilians, carried people out of burning sections. Pulled workers from collapsed corridors. She's been moving through the station for 6 hours, hunting every demon that escaped the initial purge. Theron processes this information with the methodical analysis of a transhuman mind. A prisoner escapes during Chaos incursion but fights to defend her captors. Kills Chaos Lord without Astarte support. Demonstrates capability to seal warp breaches. Every detail contradicts standard threat assessment protocols. "Where is this prisoner now?" Theron asks. The corporal points toward the station's central spine. "Last Vox contact reported her near the tertiary reactor complex. There's a demon nest there. We lost a squad trying to clear it an hour ago. She said she would handle it." Theron makes a decision. "Squad Tarentus with me. Squad Gaius, secure this position and begin evacuation of survivors. Terminator team. Establish defensive perimeter around the primary command center." They move through the station in combat formation, Astarte's efficiency rendering their advance swift and deadly. Twice they encountered demon stragglers, lesser entities that fled the main battle. Both times they are too late. They find only demon corpses already cooling. Strange scorch marks on the walls and patterns their armor's cogitators cannot identify. and boot prints that suggest something human-sized but far lighter than Astartes' power armor.
They reach the tertiary reactor complex and hear weapons fire echoing from within.
Theron hand signals his squad into breach positions, and they enter in standard room-clearing formation.
What they see stops even transhuman reflexes in their tracks.
The reactor chamber is vast, a cathedral of industrial machinery where massive power conduits pulse with barely contained energy. Demons infest the space bloodletters and plague-bearers, things of rage and decay drawn to the reactor's heat like flies to corruption. There are at least 30 of them, and they are all focused on a single figure in orange and red armor who dances through their ranks like death given form.
Samus Aran moves with inhuman grace, her jumps carrying her 3 times the height an unaugmented human could achieve.
Her morph ball form allowing her to pass through gaps impossibly small, her weapons firing with perfect accuracy as she spins and weaves through attacks that would bisect a normal soldier.
A demon lunges.
She slides beneath its claws, fires upward into its torso, and uses the explosion to propel herself sideways into a roll that brings her arm cannon to bear on 2 more targets. Both die before they can register her position.
Brother Corvus's psychic senses flare.
Captain, her soul. I can see it even through the demon swarm. It burns, not with the Emperor's light, but with something else, something ancient and clean and utterly uncorrupted. How is that possible?
Theron does not answer because he does not know.
He only knows that the figure fighting before him demonstrates combat capability that rivals Astartes standards, and she has been sustaining this level of performance for 6 hours without support. A bloodletter nearly reaches her, its hellblade swinging in a decapitation arc. Samus parries with her arm cannon, the demon weapon screeching as it meets energy shielding that should not be able to block physical matter. She fires point blank, and the demon's head disintegrates. 3 more converge from different angles, coordinated assault that should be impossible to evade. She morphs into a sphere, drops like a stone, deploys bombs that detonate in sequence to create a rising pillar of explosions. She emerges 10 meters away, lands on a coolant pipe, and rains missiles down on the demon pack with devastating precision.
Should we assist?
Brother Titus asks, his bolter already raised. Theron is about to order engagement when Samus seems to sense their presence.
She pivots mid-jump, her visor locking onto their position for a fraction of a second, and Theron sees something on that blank orange faceplate that he recognizes instantly.
Tactical assessment. Threat evaluation. The same calculation Astartes make 1,000 times per battle.
She identifies them as non-hostile and returns to her demon clearing without pause. But 2 bloodletters have broken from the main fight, drawn by the new arrivals, and they charge the Ultramarines with howling fury. Theron's squad opens fire, bolt rounds tearing through warp flesh with satisfying effect. The demons die, but more are turning now, the swarm's attention splitting.
Samus adjusts instantly.
She shifts her attack pattern to draw demon aggression back toward herself, firing at maximum output to create noise and flash and energy signatures that the warp entities cannot ignore. She is deliberately painting herself as the primary target to protect the Astartes.
Theron recognizes the tactic.
It is the same maneuver he would order to protect an allied unit. All squads, weapons free, he commands.
Assist the prisoner.
The Ultramarines join the battle, and the reactor chamber becomes a kill zone of coordinated firepower. Bolters roar, each explosive mass-reactive round tearing through demon flesh, with the Omnissiah's wrath made manifest. Plasma weaponry superheats the air until breathing becomes a labor, and through it all, Samus Aran fights with them, her strange weapons complementing their fire patterns, her movement creating opportunities that the Astartes instinctively exploit. It is a battle that will be recorded in squad logs and debated in tactical
seminars for years afterward. The moment when Ultramarines fought beside Xenos technology or beside whatever she is and found the coordination seamless, natural, as though they had trained together for decades. The last demon falls to a combined assault.
Brother Titus's plasma blast staggering it, Samus's missile barrage finishing it. The entity dissolves with a scream that fades into the psychic void.
And sudden silence descends. Samus turns to face the Ultramarines fully.
For a long moment, neither side moves. Tenna starts, weapons still hot. Standing across the reactor chamber from a single armored figure half their size who just held her ground against a demon incursion that should have required an entire company to suppress. Theron steps forward, his hand deliberately moving away from his bolter in a gesture of non-aggression.
"Identify yourself,"
he says, and his voice through the helmet vox grill carries the authority of Terra itself. Samus responds through her external speakers, the words still fractured Gothic, but more practiced now. "Samus Aran, Hunter.
Not enemy."
You are the prisoner the Inquisition seeks to terminate."
"Yes."
"Why did you not flee?" Samus pauses, and Theron realizes she is searching for words in a language she barely knows. Finally, she says simply, "Civilians."
"Could not leave."
Brother Corvus steps forward, his psychic hood crackling with residual energy. "Captain, I must report, she speaks truth.
Her soul radiates no deception.
And I sense no corruption despite her prolonged exposure to warp entities. This should be impossible, but I cannot deny what my senses tell me." Theron makes a decision that will define the rest of his service. He maglocks his bolter to his thigh and extends an empty hand towards Samus Aran. The Codex Astartes teaches that we honor those who fight with courage against the enemies of mankind, regardless of their origin. You have fought. You have saved lives. You have killed demons with a skill that equals our own. For these actions, you have earned respect. Samus looks at the extended hand. Her visor scans it, analyses it, and then she reaches out and clasps forearm to forearm in a warrior's grip. "Thank you," she says in broken Gothic. The moment is interrupted by vox traffic crackling across all channels. Inquisitor Helweg's voice, cold and absolute. "All Astartes forces, locate and terminate the prisoner designated Samus Aran.
She is to be destroyed on sight by order of the Holy Inquisition. Any who harbor or assist her will be investigated for heresy.
The Emperor's will be done." Theron does not release Samus's arm. Instead, his grip tightens fractionally. "Fall back to the ship," he orders his squad. Then, to Samus, "Come with us." Quickly. Brother Corvus's shock bleeds through the vox. "Captain, that is a direct order from an Inquisitor." "We cannot." "We can," Theron interrupts, "and we will."
She has earned sanctuary through blood and honor.
The Inquisition may condemn her, but I will not execute someone who fights beside us against the darkness. Now move before I must make this a formal refusal and bring political hell upon the entire chapter. The Ultramarines exchange glances. Then, as one, they turn and begin moving toward the extraction point. Samus follows, her visor tracking every corner, every shadow, already calculating what will come next. Behind them in the command center, Inquisitor Helweg watches through picked feeds and feels her carefully constructed authority beginning to crack. The conclave convenes aboard the inquisitorial black ship Absolute Purity, a vessel whose name is both prayer and promise. Helweg stands before a tribunal of her peers, 3 inquisitors whose combined authority could condemn entire sectors to exterminatus, whose judgments have toppled planetary governments and rewritten the fates of billions. Behind them, projected in shifting holographic display, is the evidence. Picked feeds of Samus Aran fighting demons, technical analyses of her armor, psyker testimonies, casualty reports showing lives saved versus Imperial doctrine violated. She is xenostouch technology that mimics human form, Helweg argues, her voice carrying the weight of absolute conviction. Her armor violates every sacred principle of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Her weapons function without prayer or ritual. Her soul's resistance to chaos corruption is unnatural, not evidence of purity, but of alien immunity.
She is a philosophical contamination that threatens the very foundations of imperial faith. Inquisitor Voss, eldest of the tribunal, leans forward in his suspensor throne. His face is more augmetic than flesh, his eyes replaced by targeting arrays that never blink. She killed 17 demons and 1 Chaos Lord without support. The defense station stands because of her intervention. Are we to execute proven demon killers because they make tech priests uncomfortable? The tech priests are correct to be uncomfortable, Hellweg counters. Her technology works.
Perfectly.
Without faith.
If the Imperium citizens learn that machinery can function without the Omnissiah's blessing, without prayer and ritual, it undermines 10,000 years of religious doctrine. The masses are kept compliant through the belief that technology is divine mystery. She represents proof that it is merely engineering. That revelation could spark tech heresy across 1,000 worlds. Inquisitor Draken, youngest but most radical of the three, speaks from behind a silver mask. So we kill her to preserve a comfortable lie? I have read the reports. She offered no hostility until threatened. She fought to protect humans, despite being our prisoner. She embodies every virtue we claim to defend: courage, selflessness, strength in the face of chaos. And we condemn her because she accomplishes these things without kneeling before the golden throne? She refuses to acknowledge the Emperor, Hellweg says flatly. She was asked directly and denied him.
That alone is death warrant sufficient.
Or, Voss rumbles, it indicates she comes from beyond the Imperium's borders, from a place where humanity survived through different means. Brother Captain Theron of the Ultramarines has submitted testimony claiming her combat doctrine and tactical decision-making mirror Codex-approved patterns.
She fights like one of us, thinks like one of us, protects innocents like one of us.
The only difference is her refusal to worship. The argument continues for 6 hours, legal doctrine and theological principle colliding with pragmatic assessment and strategic value. Meanwhile, 3 decks below in a holding cell designed to contain rogue psychers, Samus Aran sits motionless in her armor, her visor tracking the patrol patterns of her guards, her suit's computer calculating structural weaknesses in the walls. The Ultramarines have been quartered aboard the Black Ship as well. Technically honored guests, but practically under house arrest until their decision to shelter Samus can be addressed through proper channels. Captain Theron stands in his assigned quarters, staring at a hololithic tactical display, and feels the weight of consequences settling on his shoulders. Brother Corvus enters without knocking, his psychic hood powered down but his eyes troubled. Captain, I have been monitoring the warp currents around the ship.
Something approaches.
Multiple somethings. Chaos forces are converging on this location with singular focus.
They are coming for her.
Theron nods slowly. Of course they are. She is a prize they cannot allow the Imperium to claim. A soul that resists corruption would be a trophy beyond price for any Chaos champion. If they cannot turn her, they will destroy her to prevent us from using her. Should we warn the Inquisition? They already know, Theron says, and they are likely pleased. If Chaos attacks, they can justify Samus's termination as security protocol. Eliminate her before the enemy arrives to claim her. Clean. Efficient.
Dogmatically sound.
Corvus's fists clench. That is not honor. No, Theron agrees. It is not. The Chaos Fleet translates from warp space 8 hours into the Conclave's deliberations. 15 ships, a flotilla of corrupted vessels that scream across the void with demonic engines that burn hotter than any plasma drive should allow. Their prows are carved into leering faces. Their hulls pulse with warp corruption. And they broadcast a single demand across all Imperial channels. Give us the Bright One, give us the Hunter, give us the soul that burns clean, or we will take your entire fleet into the warp and let you experience her fate as prisoners of our dark gods.
The Black Ship's captain orders battle stations. Gun decks arm Nova cannons.
Fighter squadrons launch into defensive screens.
But everyone aboard knows the truth: this fleet is outgunned, outmaneuvered, and facing enemy forces that do not obey mortal limitations.
In the tribunal chamber, Helweg stands and delivers her final judgment. The prisoner designated Samus Aran represents an unacceptable ideological threat to the Imperium's spiritual integrity. Her technology constitutes
tech heresy. Her refusal to acknowledge the Emperor constitutes blasphemy.
Her existence attracts chaos forces that endanger all loyal servants in proximity. Therefore, by unanimous vote of this tribunal, and with the authority vested in us by the Golden Throne, we order immediate termination. May the Emperor forgive what necessity demands. The kill order transmits to the detention level. 6 stormtroopers, armed with hellguns and carrying melta charges sufficient to vaporize the entire cell, advance on Samus's position. They are professionals, veterans, who have executed heretics and Xenos by the hundred.
They feel no hesitation, no guilt. Only duty.
They open the cell door and find it empty. Samus is already moving through the ship's ventilation system, her morph ball form rolling through access shafts designed for maintenance servitors. Her visor displays a 3-dimensional map generated from passive sensor scans, showing her the path to the primary hangar bay. She has approximately 4 minutes before they seal the ship's interior and vent atmosphere in the sections she occupies.
She has escaped worse odds.
Behind her, Captain Theron makes a decision that will end his career or elevate him to chapter legend. He orders his Ultramarines to seal the corridor leading to the hangar bay, ostensibly to contain Samus's escape route.
In reality, he seals it to prevent inquisitorial forces from pursuing.
"Captain, that is treason," Brother Titus says quietly.
"Yes."
Theron agrees. "Record it as such in your personal log. If we survive, I will answer to the chapter master, but I will not murder someone who fights as she fights, who saves as she saves."
Simply because old men fear questions. The Codex teaches that honor matters. Today, I prove I believe that.
His squad exchanges glances, and then, as one, they activate the corridor's blast doors. The Inquisition's forces hammer against the barrier, but it is designed to withstand boarding actions. It will hold for 10 minutes.
Samus reaches the hangar bay and finds her ship already prepped for departure. Captain Theron's doing, she realizes.
A final act of honor from a warrior who understands what she is, even if his civilization does not. She boards, her systems interfacing with the gunship's controls, and launches with zero hesitation. Behind her, the Chaos Fleet opens fire on the black ship. Not to destroy, but to disable, to board, to search for the prize they have come to claim. But the prize is already gone, burning through void space on engines that should not work as efficiently as they do, leaving behind a war that started because she dared to exist. In the tribunal chamber, Inquisitor Helweg watches the tactical display and sees Samus's ship accelerate beyond Imperial pursuit range.
She has failed. The tech heretic has escaped.
The question she represents will spread. "Log it as enemy intervention," Helweg says tiredly.
Chaos forces allowed her escape. We did everything doctrine demanded.
But even as she speaks, she knows the truth.
They did everything doctrine demanded, and doctrine failed.
And in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, that is the most terrifying possibility of all. Samus's ship limps into real space above Hydra Tertius, a fortress world on the Imperium's outer fringe, and immediately her damaged sensors scream warnings. The planet is under siege. Chaos forces have launched a full-scale planetary assault, their drop pods and landing craft raining from orbit like iron hail. Below, Imperial defenders fight with desperate courage against overwhelming odds.
Cities burn.
Void shields fail.
And in the largest remaining starport, thousands of civilians huddle in shelters, waiting for evacuation transports that will never come. Her ship's AI damaged, struggling, but still functional, highlights the starport on her tactical display. The structure is the last operational landing facility on the continent. If it falls, 40,000 civilians will be trapped with no escape route when the Chaos ground forces overrun the city's defensive perimeter.
Samus could flee.
Her ship has enough fuel for one more warp jump, enough supplies to reach unclaimed space where neither Imperium nor Chaos would follow.
She has no obligation to these people.
They tried to kill her.
Their Inquisition condemned her as heresy. She owes them nothing.
She angles her ship toward the starport and begins her descent. The landing is controlled, her thrusters failing halfway through atmospheric entry, her hull plating superheating, her stabilizers screaming as she fights to maintain trajectory. She impacts in the starport's northern cargo section with force enough to crater the ferrocrete and send shockwaves through adjacent buildings. When she emerges from her ship, smoke rising from her scorched armor, she sees the situation with terrible clarity.
The starport is a killing field.
Chaos cultists swarm through breached perimeter walls, their bodies twisted by dark blessings, their weapons crude but effective. Behind them come traitor marines, their armor bearing the blasphemous symbols of gods whose names she will not learn. And in the sky, warprifts pulse like infected wounds, disgorging demon entities that fall upon defenders and civilians alike. The Imperial Guard Regiment holding the starport Cadian 117th, their banner torn but still flying, has been reduced to 300 soldiers from an original strength of 5,000. They fight from makeshift barricades, their lost fire disciplined but increasingly desperate. Their commander, Colonel Veyron, is missing his left arm below the elbow but continues shouting orders with parade ground precision. Samus scans the battlefield and identifies the critical points. Civilian Shelter Alpha holding 12,000 non-combatants, protected by a single depleted infantry platoon. Shelter Beta with 8,000 civilians and no defenders at all. Shelter Gamma destroyed, its occupants lost. And the primary control tower where Veyron coordinates the defense with equipment held together by prayer and spite. She also identifies the command element of the Chaos Assault, a sorcerer lord conducting a ritual in the starport's eastern section, drawing power from the dying to tear a permanent warp rift that will flood the entire facility with demons.
Samus makes her decisions with the same calm efficiency she applies to scanning alien artifacts. Save the civilians. Eliminate the ritual. Hold until evacuation becomes possible.
That the evacuation may never come does not factor into her planning.
You save who you can save.
That is the only philosophy that Chozo ever taught her that matters.
She launches into battle.
Her first action is a screw attack charge through the cultist assault on Shelter Alpha. She becomes a spinning cylinder of death, her energy field tearing through corrupted flesh and twisted armor without slowing.
30 cultists die in 5 seconds.
The platoon defending the shelter stares in shock as the orange and red figure lands in their midst, visor already tracking the next threat.
Hold this position, Samus says in her improving Gothic.
I clear path for civilians. The platoon sergeant, a woman whose face is more scar tissue than skin, just nods mutely.
Samus moves to Shelter Beta, where demons are already tearing through the blast doors. She fires a super missile that detonates with star-bright fury, the explosion banishing 3 lesser demons and staggering a bloodletter that was seconds from breaching the civilian safe room. She follows with sustained plasma beam fire, the blue-white energy carving through warp flesh faster than it can regenerate. A traitor marine targets her from elevation, his bolter thundering. The rounds impact her shields, each hit draining energy, 3 shots coming dangerously close to penetration. She morphs into ball form, the bolter rounds passing through empty air where her torso was a millisecond before, and deploys a bomb that propels her upward in a ballistic arc. She emerges from morph ball mid-air, directly level with the traitor marine, and fires point blank. Her charge beam punches through his corrupted power armor and out the back of his torso. He falls, and Samus lands on his corpse as it hits the ground.
Colonel Veyron, watching through magnoculars from his command position, keys his vox. All units, the Xenos is fighting for us. I repeat, Do not fire on the orange armor. Anyone who wastes ammunition on her instead of the enemy gets my remaining fist in their teeth. The Cadians adjust fire, and suddenly the battle shifts. Samus's mobility and firepower draw enemy attention, creating openings that disciplined Imperial fire exploits. Her scanning capability identifies priority targets that she relays through rapid Gothic over open Vox channels. Her willingness to charge directly into enemy formations allows Imperial forces to reposition without being overrun. It is not quite coordination.
It is not quite cooperation, but it is effective.
The Chaos Sorcerer realizes his ritual is threatened and redirects forces towards Samus specifically. Demon packs converge from multiple vectors. Traitor Marines advance in coordinated fire teams. Cultist suicide bombers sprint toward her position with explosives strapped to their chests and madness burning in their eyes. Samus treats it as a target-rich environment. Her power bombs deploy with devastating precision, each explosion creating safe zones in the demon swarm. Her grapple beam, a weapon designed for traversal, proves effective at yanking cultists off their feet and swinging them into their allies. Her ice beam, rarely used since her early bounties, freezes warp flesh solid and shatters it with follow-up missile impacts.
She is everywhere.
On the walls. In the air. Rolling through gaps in the enemy formation. Every Imperial soldier who sees her fight will remember this moment for the rest of their lives, the moment they saw something impossible choose their side and refuse to break. But even Samus Aran has limits. Her shield energy drops below 20%. Her ammunition reserves deplete to critical levels. Her suit's armor plating shows microfractures from repeated heavy impacts. And still the enemy comes, endless and hungry and certain of victory. Then the Voxnat erupts with new traffic. This is Brother Captain Theron of the Ultramarines. All Cadian forces, hold your positions. We are inbound. 3 Thunderhawks scream through the sky, weapons blazing. They strafe the Chaos formations with heavy bolter fire and missile barrages, then deploy directly into the starport's central plaza. 30 Ultramarines hit the ground and immediately open fire with transhuman precision. The tide of battle shifts instantly. Theron's voice carries across the Vox, calm and authoritative. Samus Aran, your position. She transmits her coordinates, and the Astartes advance to support her. For the second time, Imperials and the strange hunter fight side by side. Bolter fire and beam weapons.
Chain swords and arm cannons.
The defenders of humanity and the woman humanity condemned, standing together against the darkness.
The Chaos Sorcerer, realizing defeat is approaching, accelerates his ritual.
The warp rift expands violently, demon entities pouring through in a final desperate flood. A greater demon begins manifesting something vast and terrible that makes reality scream just by existing. Samus sees it and makes a choice. She arms every remaining power bomb she carries, sets them to detonate simultaneously, and launches herself directly at the rift with her speed booster at maximum charge.
What is she doing?
Brother Corvus shouts over the Vox. Theron, watching through his helmet display, understands.
She is closing the rift, manually. Emperor preserve us. She is going to enter the warp and seal it from inside.
Samus hits the rift at full speed, passes through the membrane of reality, and deploys her bombs inside the Imperium itself. The explosions tear through the warp space with more than physical force. They carry her soul's clarity. That bright, clean energy that chaos cannot digest, and the warp recoils from the contamination. The rift collapses. Samus tumbles back into real space, her armor smoking, her shields at zero, her energy reserves completely depleted. She crashes into the Ferrocrete and does not rise. The Chaos forces, cut off from their reinforcements and facing combined Astartes and Guard counterattack, break and flee.
The battle is over.
40,000 civilians survive because one hunter chose to stand. Captain Theron reaches Samus's position first. Her armor is cracked, systems offline, but her vital signs register as stable. He kneels beside her, this woman who has been condemned by his civilization but proves its ideals more truly than most who claim to serve it.
"You survived," he says quietly.
Behind him, Colonel Veyron approaches, his remaining hand raised in salute. "I don't care what the Inquisition says. That is a hero, and anyone who says otherwise can come explain it to the 40,000 civilians she just saved."
But Theron knows the truth. Salvation and condemnation both approach on the same transport.
The Imperium will send more Inquisitors.
They will demand answers. They will see Samus's heroism and call it heresy, her courage and call it threat.
"We need to get you off-world," Theron tells Samus's unconscious form.
Before they arrive to finish what politics started.
In orbit, another inquisitorial fleet translates from warp space.
The hunt is not over.
Samus wakes 3 days later in the Medici bay of an Ultramarines battle barge, her armor removed for the first time since her arrival in this universe. The tech priests who examined it wept at its elegance. The apothecaries who scanned her body found genetic modifications that made even a Start's gene seed look primitive.
And Captain Theron, who has been court-martialed in absentia by the Inquisition for aiding a condemned heretic, sits beside her recovery pod and simply nods when her eyes open. "You are free to go," he says. "Your ship has been repaired by our best tech marines who broke approximately 40 sacred oaths to work on Xenos technology and regret nothing. We have provided you with star charts marking regions beyond Imperial borders, places where neither Inquisition nor Chaos routinely patrol. And we have recorded your biometric signature in our chapter records as honored ally of the Ultramarines. It is not much, but it may grant you safe passage if you encounter our brothers elsewhere." Samus sits up, her movements still showing strain but recovering quickly.
She speaks Gothic more fluently now. 3 days of unconscious learning via the Medici Bay's autolinguistic programming finally giving her proper syntax.
"Why?"
she asks simply.
Theron considers the question. "Because the Codex Astartes teaches that we serve humanity, not institutions. Because you fought when you could have fled. Because you embody every virtue we are supposed to represent, and condemning you would condemn the ideals we claim to uphold." He pauses. "And because I have lived for 2 centuries in this Imperium, and I have seen what it does to those who question, who innovate, who dare to be better than doctrine permits. I am tired of killing people whose only crime is being right when we are wrong." Samus studies him with those strange blue human eyes, but with a clarity that suggests something more.
"What will happen to you? Political consequences, chapter discipline, perhaps censure." Theron shrugs, a gesture that looks strange on a being built for war.
"But the Ultramarines are pragmatic. They will review my decision, assess its strategic value,
and likely file it under acceptable deviation given circumstances. I will serve penance, probably lose command for a decade or 2, and continue fighting. I have made peace with that." He stands and extends his hand. Samus takes it, and they clasp forearms again, warrior to warrior, human to human, 2 people who understand what the other has sacrificed.
"Where will you go?" Theron asks. Samus looks toward the view screen where stars drift in the endless void. "I need to understand this place, this warp that connects everything, this Imperium that spans galaxies, the nature of those demon entities. I need to find out if there is a path home and if there is not. I need to understand the rules of this new reality." She turns back to Theron.
"And I will do what I have always done. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Hunt the monsters. Stand in the dark places so others can live in light. Then you will find no shortage of work in the 41st Millennium," Theron says with something that might be grim humor.
"This galaxy produces more monsters than any one hunter could eliminate, I have noticed."
They walk together to the hangar bay where her ship waits. restored to functionality by tech priests who treated the work as sacred mission rather than heresy. Brother Corvus is there, his psychic hood powered down, and he approaches Samus with unusual hesitation. "I have seen your soul," he says quietly.
I have touched the edges of what you are with my warp sight.
"You are not what the Imperium teaches humanity should be, but you are what humanity could be. Clean, purposeful, unbroken by the darkness we claim is inevitable. Part of me hopes you find your way home. Another part hopes you stay, because this galaxy desperately needs proof that corruption is not destiny." Samus nods slowly.
Thank you for seeing me instead of what your civilization fears.
She boards her ship, systems coming online with familiar efficiency, and lifts from the hangar bay with smooth acceleration. The battle barge's shields open to allow her departure, and she angles toward the system's edge where uncharted space begins. Captain Theron watches her go from the observation deck, Brother Corvus standing beside him.
She will be hunted, Corvus says. The Inquisition has declared her excommunicate traitoress. Every loyal Imperial force is ordered to kill her on sight.
Chaos will send warbands to capture or destroy her. Xenos will see her as curiosity or threat. She has no allies, no support, no understanding of this galaxy's true dangers. She will not survive.
Theron watches Samus's ship accelerate to faster-than-light velocities and vanish into the void.
"Perhaps," he says.
Or perhaps we have just witnessed the arrival of something this stagnant, dying Imperium has not seen in 10,000 years. What is that? Hope.
Asterisk across the galaxy, in the dark places where information brokers and intelligence networks whisper secrets, a new file begins circulating. It is fragmentary, incomplete, but compelling. Asterisk unknown entity.
Designation: the Hunter.
Appearance: orange and red armor, humanoid, female. Capabilities: extreme mobility, advanced energy weapons, resistance to warp corruption, combat effectiveness equivalent to Astartes.
Affiliations: none confirmed. Threat assessment: unknown.
Last known location: Hydra Tertius.
Status: at large. The Inquisition wants her dead. Chaos wants her captured.
The Ultramarines call her ally. The Cadians call her hero. And on 17 worlds where she has appeared, fought, and vanished again, the civilians tell stories of an armored angel who asks for nothing, saves who she can, and disappears before anyone can thank her properly.
Asterisk in the grim darkness of the far future, where there is only war, something new has entered the game. Not quite human.
Not quite machine.
Not quite hero.
Just a hunter, doing what she has always done, in a galaxy that desperately needs hunting.
Asterisk Samus Aran has crashed into Warhammer 40,000 DARS. And the 41st millennium will never be quite the same.